Mark Jennings considered himself a reasonable man. He paid his taxes, mowed his lawn, sorted his recycling, and generally kept to himself in the quiet, respectable enclave of Oakwood Creek. His house, a standard two-story colonial purchased 5 years prior, was his sanctuary. It wasn't ostentatious, nor was it neglected. It was simply, home. The beige siding was innocuous, the landscaping tidy, and the garage door, a shade of builder-standard beige that had graced the house since its construction 15 years ago, was functional and unobtrusive. Or so he thought. Life in Oakwood Creek was governed, as many such communities are, by a homeowners association, the Oakwood Creek HOA. Mark, like most residents, paid his dues and largely ignored its machinations, aside from the occasional newsletter reminding everyone about lawn maintenance standards or upcoming potlucks. The HOA board was a rotating cast of residents with varying degrees of enthusiasm, currently presided over by one Helen Sterling. Helen, consistent woman, mid-50s, sharp features often set in a disapproving frown, impeccably coiffed blonde hair, favors business casual attire even on weekends, was known for her diligence. Some called it dedication. Others, less charitably, called it meddling. Mark had only interacted with her briefly at annual meetings, finding her intense and rather self-important. On this particular Tuesday, the sun shone brightly, birds chirped, and Mark was contemplating whether to finally tackle the overgrown rose bushes near the mailbox. He retrieved the mail, shuffling through the usual junk circulars and bills. Tucked between a credit card offer and a flyer for a local pizzeria was a crisp, cream-colored envelope bearing the official Oakwood Creek HOA logo. Curious, Mark slid it open. Inside, a single sheet of heavy bond paper detailed, in stark black print, a violation notice. His violation. It stated, with bureaucratic certainty. Dear Mr. Jennings. It has come to the attention of the Architectural Review Committee, ARC, under the purview of the Oakwood Creek Homeowners Association Board of Directors, that the color of your garage door located at 124 Willow Lane is not in compliance with established community aesthetic standards. The current color is deemed excessively conspicuous and incongruent with the harmonious visual palette of the neighborhood. Pursuant to HOA Bylaw Section 7, Article 4, Paragraph 2b, homeowners are required to maintain exterior paint colors that blend seamlessly with the surrounding properties. Your garage door color fails to meet this requirement. You are hereby instructed to repaint the aforementioned garage door to a more suitable, muted, and approved color within 30 calendar days of the date of this notice. Failure to comply will result in further action, including potential fines as outlined in the HOA governing documents. Sincerely. Helen Sterling, President, Oakwood Creek HOA Chair, Architectural Review Committee. Mark read it once. Then twice. He walked out of his front door and stared, truly stared, at his garage door. Beige. Unremarkable, unoffensive, builder-basic beige. The exact same beige it had been when he signed the closing papers 5 years ago. The same beige it had likely been since the house was built. Excessively conspicuous. Incongruent. He blinked. Was this a joke? A prank by a neighbor? But the official letterhead, the specific bylaw citation, Helen Sterling's imperious signature, it felt chillingly real. Confusion warred with nascent irritation. Mark wasn't one to rock the boat, but this felt absurd. He decided to take a walk, ostensibly to clear his head, but really to conduct an informal audit of neighborhood garage doors. He ambled down Willow Lane, then looped onto Maple Drive and Chestnut Court. House 1, white garage door, blue siding. House 2, gray garage door, gray siding, different shades. House 3, dark brown garage door, tan brick. House 4, forest green garage door, white siding. House 5, cream garage door, red brick. House 6, the Millers a rather bold, but tasteful, deep burgundy garage door against light gray siding. His own beige door against beige siding seemed positively camouflaged in comparison. He counted at least 15 different garage door colors within a 3-block radius. Some matched the trim, some matched the siding, some contrasted entirely. There was no discernible pattern, no dominant color scheme, certainly no indication that his beige was the rogue element disrupting neighborhood harmony. He bumped into his neighbor, Bob Henderson, consistent man, late 60s, friendly but known gossip, often seen gardening, who was trimming his hedges. "Everything all right, Mark?" Bob asked, wiping sweat from his brow. "You look like you've seen a ghost." Mark hesitated, then decided to test the waters. "Just got a notice from the HOA, Bob. Apparently, my garage door color is out of compliance. Bob leaned on his hedge trimmers, eyebrows raised. "Your beige one? Seriously? What's wrong with it?" "Helen Sterling says it's excessively conspicuous and doesn't match the neighborhood," Mark explained, the words tasting ridiculous as he said them. Bob let out a short, barking laugh. "Conspicuous? Mark, that door is practically invisible. And doesn't match? Mate, look around." He gestured widely. "We've got a rainbow coalition of garage doors here. Since when is there a rule about matching? Old man Hemlock painted his purple for 6 months back in '08 before his wife made him change it." Nobody said boo. "That's what I thought," Mark sighed. "It's the original color from when the house was built." "Well, Helen's been on a bit of a power trip since she got elected president last year," Bob confided, lowering his voice. "Trying to make her mark, I suppose. Tightening screws that don't need tightening. Don't let her bully you, Mark. That's just nonsense." Mark thanked Bob, feeling a mixture of validation and frustration. It wasn't just his imagination. The notice was absurd. But it was also official, signed by the HOA president herself. Back home, Mark decided the direct approach was best. He wasn't going to repaint a perfectly fine, original garage door based on a nonsensical violation. He carefully composed an email to Helen Sterling and the HOA board, CCNG the general HOA inquiry address for good measure. Subject, violation notice, garage door color, 124, Willow Lane. Dear Ms. Sterling and members of the HOA board. I am writing in response to the violation notice I received today regarding the color of my garage door. I must admit I am quite perplexed by this notice. The garage door in question is currently painted the original color it was when I purchased the home 5 years ago, and I believe it is the color it has been since the house was constructed approximately 15 years ago. It is a standard beige color. Furthermore, upon reviewing the neighborhood, I observed a wide variety of garage door colors on surrounding properties, including white, gray, brown, green, and even burgundy. There does not appear to be a consistent color scheme enforced, nor is my beige door noticeably different or more conspicuous than many others. Could you please clarify which specific, pre-approved color palette my door violates? And could you perhaps provide guidance on why this original, neutral color is suddenly deemed unacceptable while numerous other, more distinct colors apparently are not? I am happy to discuss this further to reach an understanding. I have attached a current photo of my garage door for your reference. Thank you for your time and clarification. Sincerely. Mark Jennings 124, Willow Lane. He attached a clear photo of his beige garage door, hit send, and leaned back, hoping for a reasonable response. Perhaps it was just a misunderstanding, an administrative error. The response came less than 24 hours later. It was curt, dismissive, and solely from Helen. Subject, violation notice, garage door color, 124, Willow Lane. Mr. Jennings. Receipt of your email is acknowledged. The ARC's decision stands. The bylaws grant the ARC authority over aesthetic matters to maintain property values and neighborhood harmony. Your personal observations of other properties are irrelevant to the violation cited at your address. Original color does not equate to compliant color. Please refer to the initial notice for compliance deadlines and potential consequences. Further correspondence debating this matter is non-productive. K. Sterling President, Oakwood Creek HOA Chair, ARC. Mark stared at the email. Irrelevant? Non-productive? The sheer arrogance and dismissal of his logical points ignited a slow burn of anger within him. This wasn't about bylaws or aesthetics, this felt personal. Why his door? Why now? Bob's comment about Helen's power trip echoed in his mind. She wasn't interested in reason, she was interested in compliance, however arbitrary. The 30-day clock was ticking. For a few days, Mark stewed. He considered appealing formally, but Helen chaired the committee he'd appeal to. He thought about just painting the door some HOA-approved shade of beige on beige, but the injustice rankled him. He felt singled out, bullied by bureaucracy. He looked out his window again, watching Mrs. Gable across the street retrieving her mail, her cheerful yellow front door a stark contrast to her navy blue garage door. Navy blue. And his beige was the problem? He thought about Helen's curt dismissal, your personal observations of other properties are irrelevant. Irrelevant? He thought. They are the entire point. An idea, born of frustration and a touch of spite, began to form. It was petty, perhaps childish, but the sheer absurdity of the situation seemed to demand an equally absurd response. Helen wanted conformity. She wanted rules followed. Fine. Let the whole neighborhood see the rules in action. Let them see the harmony she was supposedly enforcing. His background was in graphic design before he switched to architectural drafting. He knew how to present information visually. Helen dismissed his observations. He would make those observations impossible to ignore. Over the next weekend, Mark became a suburban paparazzo. Armed with his smartphone, he took careful, well-lit photos of every single garage door in Oakwood Creek. He captured the whites, the grays, the browns, the greens, the creams, the burgundy, even a rather faded blue one on the far end of the development he hadn't noticed before. He made sure to get a clear shot of his own beige door for comparison. Back in his home office, he downloaded the photos. He cropped each one to focus solely on the garage door and a bit of the surrounding house for context. He didn't alter the colors, merely ensuring they were accurately represented. He then arranged them into a large grid collage, dozens of garage doors, a vibrant, chaotic mosaic of individual homeowner choices. Beneath the collage, in large, bold, sans serif font, he typed a simple caption. Oakwood Creek garage doors, spot the mandatory color palette. And below that, slightly smaller but still prominent. Hint, you can't. He printed several copies on large format paper at a local print shop, the colors vivid and undeniable. He felt a thrill of nervous energy. This was definitely rocking the boat. The community bulletin board stood near the entrance to Oakwood Creek, a glass-encased hub for lost pet posters, babysitting ads, and official HOA announcements. Helen often posted minutes and reminders there. Mark knew it was the most visible spot in the neighborhood. Late Sunday night, well after midnight, Mark slipped out of his house. He wore a dark hoodie, pulled up slightly, feeling ridiculous but also strangely exhilarated. He carried the rolled-up posters and a small box of thumbtacks. The streets were silent, bathed in the orange glow of the streetlights. He quickly reached the bulletin board, unlocked the flimsy latch, it was rarely properly secured, and removed a few outdated notices. With swift, practiced movements, he unrolled one of his posters and pinned it firmly in the center of the board, the vibrant grid of garage doors stark against the cork backing. He made sure the caption was clearly visible. He then pinned up a second copy on the adjacent board usually reserved for social events. He stepped back, admiring his handiwork in the dim light. The collage was striking, undeniable proof of the neighborhood's true diverse aesthetic. It was a silent, visual rebuttal to Helen's arbitrary edict. He quickly relatched the glass doors, pocketed his thumbtacks, and melted back into the shadows, his heart pounding. Monday morning dawned bright and clear. The first wave of commuters and dog walkers heading out were greeted by the unusual display on the community bulletin board. People paused, squinted, then leaned closer. A murmur started. Soon, small groups gathered. Bob Henderson was there early, examining the poster with a grin. "Well, I'll be," he chuckled to Mrs. Gable, consistent character, kind elderly lady, who was peering through her spectacles. "Someone's finally called out the Emperor's new clothes, or lack thereof, in this case." "Oh my," Mrs. Gable tittered, pointing. "Is that my navy door? And look, there's the Miller's burgundy. And Mark Jennings' beige, which looks positively drab compared to some, doesn't it?" "Exactly," Bob declared loudly, enjoying the role of commentator. 30-odd houses, 30-odd colors. Harmonious visual palette, my foot. Someone clearly got a bee in their bonnet over nothing. Others were more confused. "Is this an official HOA thing?" asked a newer resident. "Doesn't look like it," someone else replied. "But it makes you wonder about that notice Mark Jennings got." Word spread quickly via text messages and neighborly chats. By 8 a.m., the bulletin board was the main topic of conversation in Oakwood Creek. People drove by slowly, pointing. The mood was a mixture of amusement, bewilderment, and a dawning realization that maybe, just maybe, the HOA's recent actions weren't entirely rational. Mark, watching discreetly from his window, felt a surge of vindication mixed with apprehension. The fuse was lit. Around 9:30 a.m., Helen Sterling's silver SUV pulled up near the bulletin board. She emerged, clipboard in hand, ready to post the agenda for the upcoming ARC meeting. She stopped dead in her tracks when she saw the crowd and, more importantly, what they were looking at. Her face, normally set in controlled disapproval, went through a rapid series of transformations: confusion, dawning recognition, fury, then a deep, blotchy red. She marched towards the board, her heels clicking sharply on the pavement. "What is the meaning of this?" she demanded, her voice tight with anger. "Who put this unauthorized material up?" The small crowd fell silent, watching her. Bob Henderson stepped forward slightly, a challenging glint in his eye. "Seems like a fair question, Helen," he said calmly. "Lots of folks wondering about the mandatory color palette you folks are enforcing. Especially since, you know." He gestured towards the poster. "There doesn't seem to be one." Helen whirled on him. "This is vandalism. Defacing HOA property. And you, Mr. Henderson, seem to find it amusing." "Just making an observation, Helen," Bob said mildly. "Like the poster says. Seems Mark Jennings isn't the only one with a conspicuous door. In fact," he squinted at the collage, "his beige one is about the least conspicuous door here." Helen sputtered, unable to form a coherent response. Her eyes darted around, seeking an ally, but finding only curious or critical stares. Her authority was being openly questioned, mocked even. Then, from the back of the small crowd, a quiet voice spoke up. It was Mrs. Gable's. "You know, Helen," she said thoughtfully, adjusting her glasses. "This reminds me of that little kerfuffle a few years back. Before you were president, dear, but you were on the ARC committee then too, weren't you?" Helen froze, her eyes narrowing at Mrs. Gable. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Oh, I think you do," Mrs. Gable continued, her voice gaining strength. "It was when you and Richard decided to paint your front door that interesting shade of mauve. Remember? Quite a few people commented on it." A collective gasp went through the onlookers who remembered. Bob Henderson's eyes widened in realization. Mrs. Gable went on, relentlessly pleasant. "And I seem to recall there was quite a debate because mauve wasn't exactly on the suggested list back then either. Someone, I think it was poor Mr. Abernathy before he moved, brought it up at a meeting. Said it clashed terribly with your brickwork. You argued quite fiercely that aesthetic interpretation was subjective, didn't you?" The color drained from Helen's face, replaced by a sickly pale. She remembered. She remembered the heated arguments, the barely veiled criticisms, the eventual quiet repainting of her own front door to a more conventional forest green after weeks of neighborhood tension. She had argued then that the rules were too restrictive, that individual expression should be allowed within reason. Now, here she was, demanding conformity from Mark Jennings over a beige garage door, using the very rules she herself had once chafed against and arguably bent. The irony hung heavy in the air. The crowd understood instantly. Helen wasn't enforcing a rule, she was wielding power, perhaps nursing an old grudge or simply enjoying the authority, and she had been caught in a staggering act of hypocrisy. Someone near the front snickered. Then another. Soon, a wave of quiet, derisive laughter spread through the group. Helen Sterling stood there, exposed and utterly humiliated, staring at the collage of colorful garage doors that served as a testament to her own double standards. The caption suddenly seemed aimed directly, personally, at her. The bulletin board incident detonated like a bomb in the quiet community of Oakwood Creek. The garage door grid, as it became known, stayed up for less than a day before Helen, regaining some composure, had it removed. But the damage was done. Photos had been taken, emails exchanged, and the story of Helen's hypocrisy spread like wildfire. Demands for an emergency HOA meeting flooded the board's inbox. Reluctantly, one was scheduled for the following Wednesday evening in the community clubhouse. The room was packed. More residents attended than had ever shown up for an annual meeting. Mark was there, sitting quietly near the back, feeling like he'd inadvertently started a revolution. Bob Henderson sat near the front, armed with printouts of old HOA meeting minutes he'd dug up. The meeting began tensely. Helen, pale but defiant, tried to control the proceedings, starting with a condemnation of the vandalism of the bulletin board and the spread of misinformation. She was immediately shouted down. "Misinformation," yelled one resident. "We saw the pictures. We live here. What was false about it?" "And what about your mauve door, Helen?" called out another, echoing Mrs. Gable's revelation. Bob Henderson stood up. According to the minutes from the HOA meeting on June 14, 2018, he read, holding up a sheet of paper, a motion was discussed regarding non-standard door colors, specifically citing the Sterling residence at 215 Oak Drive. The minutes note that Ms. Sterling argued strongly against strict enforcement, citing subjectivity in aesthetics. The matter was tabled, but records show the Sterlings repainted their door green within 2 months. The room erupted. People demanded answers. Why was Mark Jennings being singled out for a beige door when the president herself had flouted color norms? Why was the ARC suddenly enforcing a rule that seemingly never existed or was, at best, inconsistently applied? Helen tried to defend herself, claiming the situations were different, that Mark's beige was particularly jarring, a statement met with scoffing laughter, that she was simply doing her job enforcing the bylaws as written. But her arguments sounded weak, self-serving. Her credibility was shot. Other board members looked deeply uncomfortable. One, a quiet accountant named David Chen, finally spoke up. "Helen, with all due respect, the optics here are terrible. And frankly, reviewing bylaw section 7, article 4, paragraph 2b, it's incredibly vague. It just says colors should blend seamlessly. It doesn't define what that means or provide any approved palette. It relies entirely on the ARC's subjective interpretation. An interpretation you seem to apply rather, selectively," Bob Henderson added pointedly. The tide had turned completely against Helen. Residents questioned her fitness to lead, her judgment, her fairness. They demanded transparency from the ARC, clear guidelines, and an end to arbitrary enforcement. The fallout from the emergency meeting was swift. Facing overwhelming pressure and a vote of no confidence initiated by several residents, Helen Sterling resigned as HOA president and chair of the Architectural Review Committee within the week. Rumors circulated that she and her husband were even considering moving, the humiliation proving too much. The remaining HOA board members quickly issued a formal apology to Mark Jennings, rescinding the violation notice regarding his garage door. They acknowledged the ambiguity of the existing bylaw and pledged to form a resident committee to draft clearer, more objective architectural guidelines, including potentially establishing a pre-approved color palette if the community desired one. A subsequent poll showed most residents preferred the existing diversity. Mark's beige garage door remained beige. It never got repainted. It stood as a quiet monument to the absurdity of the situation and the power of collective observation, and a little bit of petty revenge. Life in Oakwood Creek returned to its usual rhythm, but something had shifted. Neighbors seemed a little more watchful of the HOA, a little more willing to question things. Mark, who had only wanted to be left alone, found himself unexpectedly respected for having stood up, albeit unconventionally, to bureaucratic overreach. He never intended to start a drama, but in defending his unassuming beige garage door, he had inadvertently exposed a deeper issue and, in the process, brought a measure of accountability to his community. He still considered himself a reasonable man, but now he knew that sometimes, reasonableness required making a bit of a scene, even if it was just with pictures of garage doors.